Imagine dropping your impossibly thin smartphone into a swimming pool.
Oh, the absolute panic.
Right. But imagine pulling it out 2 hours later and then, using its onboard AI to literally change the weather in a photo you just took of that exact pool.
Which is wild to even think about.
It is. And usually, a phone that can do all of that, it costs as much as a used car. You expect those kinds of features to be completely locked behind an ultra-premium flagship price tag.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you buy a cheaper version, well, you brace yourself for the compromise. You expect it to be a watered-down imitation.
It's the classic tech trade-off. Like, you accept a lower tier of performance or maybe a cheaper build quality just to get the branding at a discount.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we're looking at a device that is flipping that expectation entirely on its head. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Whether you're prepping for your next upgrade, trying to figure out where consumer electronics are actually heading, or you're just insanely curious, we're glad you're joining us. Today's mission is to unpack this massive disruption happening in the mobile space, which is the newly released Vivo V70 FE.
Right, with the FE standing for Fan Edition,
Yeah.
which is a pretty big deal because this marks the very first Fan Edition in the entire history of Vivo's V series.
Yeah, it's a huge milestone. We're pulling our insights today from a really fantastic, comprehensive breakdown by the YouTube tech channel Rakami TV.
They did a great job on that one.
They really did. And they posed a crucial question about this release, and it's kind of the central question for you listening right now. Is this just another watered-down version of a flagship device meant to, plug a hole on a store shelf? Or is Vivo actively changing the rules of the entire mid-range smartphone market?
Well, judging by the intense hardware and software synthesis that Rakami TV documented, the old rules of the mid-range market, they simply do not apply to this device.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the flashy cameras and those crazy reality-bending AI tricks, we really have to look at the engine room.
Foundation of it all.
Right. We have to look at the brain making all of this possible because physical hardware dictates the absolute limits of software. You just cannot run next-generation AI on a lagging processor.
No, you can't. The hardware always sets the ceiling. If the processor bottlenecks every other flashy feature on the phone, it just stutters, overheats, or fails entirely.
So true. And the V70 FE is powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 7360 Tyro. According to the source, it's built on an advanced 4-nanometer process and uses an octa-core CPU to basically split its workload. You've got 4 performance cores. Those are Cortex A78s handling the really heavy lifting. And you have 4 efficiency cores, the Cortex A55s, handling your everyday tasks.
It's a highly compartmentalized approach to processing, actually, and it completely changes how the phone draws power.
Yeah, think of it like a hybrid vehicle. It seamlessly switches over to a massive power-hungry gas engine when you need to merge onto the highway at top speed. But then it silently drops back down to this ultra-efficient electric motor when you're just, cruising through a residential neighborhood.
That's a really good way to look at it.
But let's clarify some of the technical jargon here, because the breakdown notes those performance cores run at 2.8 gigahertz, while the efficiency cores run at 2.0 gigahertz.
Right.
For the person holding the phone, what does a gigahertz actually feel like?
Well, a gigahertz is essentially a measurement of the processor's speed limit. It represents 1 billion computing cycles per second.
Oh, a billion.
Yeah, a billion. So at 2.8 gigahertz, those performance cores are executing 2.8 billion cycles every single second.
That is just hard to wrap your head around.
Totally. So when you load up a massive 3D game, those A78 cores wait up, pushing data at that blistering speed so your frame rate doesn't drop. Then, when you close the game and go back to, say, reading an article, the phone shuts down those heavy lifters.
And it hands the work to the A55 cores.
Exactly, the ones running at 2.0 gigahertz. It prevents the phone from wasting top-tier energy on a low-tier task.
And working alongside that CPU, there's a Mali G610 GPU that's specifically tuned to this Tiro configuration to ensure those complex graphics just render smoothly.
Yeah, they have to work together perfectly.
But I want to back up to a phrase we hear thrown around constantly in these tech keynotes, 4 nanometer.
Right, the famous 4 nanometer. Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the 4 nanometer metric isn't just a marketing buzzword. It's a physical microscopic measurement of the transistors inside the chip.
Okay.
A nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. We are talking about squeezing billions of individual transistors into a silicon wafer roughly the size of your thumbnail.
It's genuinely mind-boggling to visualize that level of engineering. But Why should the user actually care how tiny their transistors are? Like, what's the real-world benefit?
Because distance matters in electronics. The closer together those transistors are packed, the less physical distance the electrical signals have to travel.
So shorter distance means the data moves faster.
Exactly. And crucially, it also means the electrons encounter less resistance as they move. Less resistance means less power is wasted as heat. So a 4-nanometer process isn't just about raw processing speed, it is about extreme energy efficiency.
And because that 4-nanometer processor runs so cool and so efficient, it frees up the phone's thermal budget.
Yep.
And Vivo uses that exact thermal headroom to power something notoriously hot and heavy, which is real-time computational photography.
Oh, yeah. Processing high-resolution images and running on-the-fly AI algorithms generates immense heat. You really need an efficient brain to pull it off without literally melting the chassis.
And Vivo's taking the photography incredibly seriously here. I mean, they partnered with the German optics giant Zeiss for this camera system.
That's a massive partnership.
It is.
Yeah.
Bringing a century-old optical powerhouse down to a mid-range device is a major statement. So let's look at the actual lenses, starting with the front, because I have a very specific gripe about front-facing cameras.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
You probably do. The V70 FE features a 32-megapixel selfie camera with a 90-degree wide angle. The Rakami TV breakdown specifically noted this is great for group selfies. Does this finally solve that awful funhouse mirror effect where the people on the edges look totally stretched out?
It addresses that exact problem, yeah. That distortion happens when a lens tries to cram a really wide field of view into a narrow space without the proper optics.
Oh, okay.
So the 90-degree angle here is wide enough to capture a group, but tight enough to avoid bending the light unnaturally at the margins. Plus, that lens has an f2.2 aperture.
Let's decode that for the listener really quick. Aperture is essentially the pupil of the camera lens, correct?
Think of it exactly like a pupil. A lower f number means the pupil is open wider, letting in more light. At f2.2, the front camera is letting in a solid amount of light for a tiny sensor.
Which keeps your selfies from looking like grainy security footage when you're indoors.
Exactly.
Moving to the back of the phone, I want to talk about the main camera because I saw a number in the source material that usually makes me roll my eyes. 200 megapixels.
Ah, yes. The megapixel wars.
Right. We see these massive numbers slapped on boxes constantly. Just have to ask, are 200 megapixels actually necessary, or is it just a gimmick to look impressive on a spec sheet?
Well, often it's a total gimmick. If a manufacturer packs 200 million pixels onto a tiny, cheap sensor, you simply get 200 million tiny, noisy pixels. It doesn't magically improve the image.
Because they're just too small to capture adequate light.
Right.
It's kind of like putting a massive V8 engine in a golf cart. I mean, the parts just don't make sense together.
That's a great analogy. A better way to visualize it is to think of a megapixel like a bucket collecting rainwater, and the light from the scene is the rain.
Okay, I like that.
So if you have 200 million microscopic buckets tightly squeezed together, they don't catch enough rain to be useful. But what's fascinating here is that Vivo didn't just inflate the megapixel count. They paired those 200 megapixels with a physical 11.56-inch HP5 sensor and those Zeiss optics.
And the source points out that a sensor of that physical size is usually reserved exclusively for top-tier flagship phones.
Exactly, because that physical sensor size is the yard where your buckets are placed. By using a massive HP5 sensor, Vivo provided a much larger yard.
So now, those 200 million buckets actually have the physical space to sit open and collect light.
Yes, it drastically increases the light intake, which gives that 4-nanometer processor incredibly rich, high-quality raw data to work with.
And alongside that main camera is an 8-megapixel ultra-wide lens with a 120-degree field of view. And for video, both the front and rear cameras support 4K resolution.
Which is pretty standard now, but still great.
Yeah. But the breakdown notes the rear camera uses dual stabilization, so combining optical image stabilization, or OIS, with electronic image stabilization. But the front video lacks OIS, relying purely on the digital side.
And, that is just a necessary structural reality. Optical image stabilization requires physical room for the lens to float and move around to counter your handshaking.
Which you don't really have on the front.
Right. Physical space on the front of a phone is at an absolute premium. So relying on the software to electronically crop and stabilize the video makes sense.
And that software is doing some really heavy lifting across the board. I mean, the processor's AI capabilities allow for up to 30x digital zoom.
30x is a lot.
It is. And Rakami TV noted it actually manages to maintain acceptable detail all the way up to 15x zoom.
That's impressive for digital.
Definitely. The phone also utilizes multi-frame noise reduction, instantly snapping multiple photos and merging them together to strip out the grain in low light. But the real headline grabbers, the things people are going to be talking about, are the 3 AI magic features.
Oh, yeah. This is where the device crosses over from simply capturing reality to actively generating it.
Yes, there is a feature called AI Magic Landscape.
Hmm.
It analyzes the scene you're pointing the camera at and can add full cinematic effects.
Like what?
You can literally add the northern lights to a dark sky, or tell the AI to add realistic snow to a daytime shot.
That is wild.
And next is AI Magic Weather. You can take a photo of a dull, overcast sky, and the AI will swap it out for a bright, clear day. You can add golden dusk lighting to a photo you took at high noon. It can even seamlessly erase pedestrians walking through the background of your shot.
The implications of that are wild. I mean, you are no longer tethered to the actual conditions of the moment.
Right. And the third feature, AI Best Face, pushes that concept even further. Imagine you take a photo of a large group of friends. The AI scans every single face in the picture.
Okay.
It lets you select the perfect moment for each individual person. It can even fix someone's closed eyes after the photo was taken.
See, this raises an incredibly important question about the very nature of photography today. With features like AI Magic Weather and Best Face, the phone is no longer just a passive documentary tool.
Right.
It is not just capturing photons bouncing off physical objects anymore.
It's practically generating what you wished had happened.
Yes. That is the philosophical shift. If a friend blinks during a photo, the objective reality is that their eyes were closed. But the AI understands that the intent of the photo was to have everyone smiling and looking at the camera.
So it alters reality to match your intent.
Exactly. It's using that Dimensity processor to stitch together an idealized memory.
It is fascinating, but also slightly terrifying when you really think about it.
Just a bit.
But from a purely technical standpoint, running that level of heavy AI processing, shooting stabilized 4K video, and rendering fake snow into your backyard, I mean, that usually spells absolute disaster for a smartphone's battery life.
Oh, heat and power draw are the historical enemies of mobile tech. Pushing a phone that hard usually leaves you tethered to a wall charger by mid-afternoon.
Which makes the physical engineering of the V70 FE so interesting. The numbers here almost sound contradictory. Let's look at the battery and the durability.
Let's do it.
The device packs a massive 7,000 milliamp hour battery.
Wait, really? 7,000?
Yes. To put that in perspective for the listener, 7,000 millica is practically a dedicated external power bank. And it supports 90-watt flash charge technology, so you can fully recharge that massive battery from 0 to full in roughly 90 minutes.